So I want to fast forward to today, and I want to do that by showing you what Pete Hegseth said the morning after the strike on his former place of employment, the Fox and Friends morning program on Fox News.
That was definitely not artificial intelligence. I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs.
So Pete Hegseth confirming a central piece of the Washington Post reporting, quote, I watched it live. We knew who they were. We knew what they represented, says who they are, designated by the United States. So we've established him in the room. Post has reported it. 11 people were on the call. 2 people with direct knowledge speak to the Post. Pete Hegseth on live TV corroborates it. So I found this amazing. This is the White House spokeswoman at her briefing today.
To be clear, does the administration deny that that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Abe, and I have a statement to read for you here. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes.
To clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
Did Admiral Bradley order that second strike because there were still survivors after the initial strike?
Again, as I read for you, Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law. He directed the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat of narco-terrorists to the United States was completely eliminated.
General Hertling, do you know Admiral Bradley?
I do not, Claire, but I do know his position in the military right now. I don't know him personally. But it kind of appears like he just got thrown under the bus. And this kind of information is critical. I did not hear that press conference today, but it's critical because if there is, and there should be, an inquiry by the United States Congress, this is going to turn into a very interesting inquiry, not only from what the Secretary of Defense says, but what from the SEAL team leader says, the individuals who reportedly gave the information to the Washington Post, the lawyers, the Southcom commander, and anybody else that was involved. And if it was an open line and there were no written orders, but it was a verbal order by anyone, it will more than likely be recorded just like the strike was recorded. And by the way, this probably, in my view, I don't know this for certain, but I'm going to use a little conjecture here. If they were firing something from an island in the Caribbean, this was not a drone strike. This was more than likely some type of artillery piece or a rocket. It was laser guided. That's what it appeared to look like from the strike to me. If it's laser guided, you have to keep the pilot with the laser on the target until the round hits. So there are going to be films of exactly what happened. So as Carolyn Levitt tries to explain in a non-military way exactly what happened, it appears like she's only digging a deeper hole.
Yeah, I mean, Admiral Baumgartner, Caroline Levitt is saying Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority in the law. His authority in the law is inconsistent with striking survivors from an initial strike. And again, I just want to tell everyone what the Post has reported happened. A missile screamed off the Trinidad coast, striking the vessel and igniting a blaze from bow to stern. For minutes, commanders watched the boat burning on a live drone feed, which was recorded. We can go back and look at that if there's a real investigation. I know that's an if. As the smoke cleared, they got a jolt. 2 survivors were clinging to the smoldering wreck. That appears inconsistent with what Caroline Levitt said today. Quote, as I read for you, Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority in the law. It would seem that if the system is still working, that someone would have sought guidance or would have wanted to know what to do. The White House throwing Admiral Bradley under the bus seems totally inconsistent with Pete Hegseth's appearance on Fox News the morning after the operation, which, again, I'll quote that for you. Quote, I watched it live. We knew who was in the boat and what they represented. that is Tren de Aragua, designated by the United States for trying to poison our country with illicit drugs?
Well, I would say here several things are consistent, and the consistency being that it isn't consistent with reality. So when you start here, first of all, there were supposedly 11 people on this vessel. No one that's experienced in this area would think that this is a major shipment of cocaine to the United States with 11 people on the vessel. Entirely inconsistent. Second, the drug that's
because they leave all that room for drugs, right? If they're running drugs, they're never more than two people. Right. Explain that.
Yes, yeah. If you're running drugs, especially a major load of drugs, you want room for cargo. You're not going to take it up with extra people. Also, you're concerned about security. The more people you have on that boat means the more families that might know about that boat going someplace, the more possibility for leaks. You want as few people on that boat as possible and as much drugs on the boat as possible. 11 people is just not consistent with carrying a major load of cocaine. The other part of it is to pretend that this is the drug that is causing overdoses in the United States. The drug that is killing people in the United States is fentanyl. Fentanyl does not come from South America. There's no fentanyl in that boat, despite the statements that the administration made in October saying there was fentanyl seen. Fentanyl is very small in small quantities, and it just is not coming from South America. Everybody in the business knows that. So what you're seeing is a consistent deviation from the facts and reworking of the facts, which is very troubling. And it kind of leads to the fact that this whole operation is not lawful. And you notice that the White House was using within his authority. So you can say somebody has authority if you tell them they can go do something. That doesn't mean that it's lawful or that he's within the bounds of the law. So I think they were careful to say those things. So here, first of all, we should keep in sight that the original strike itself doesn't appear to be lawful. There isn't any legal basis for it in international law. Mm-hmm. Calling somebody a terrorist or a foreign terrorist organization is not fairy dust that immediately you sprinkle on them and they're now a legitimate target to go out and kill them every time you find them. That's not the way international or domestic law works. It simply is not. I think the other thing that's kind of consistent and troubling here is we've seen our brave professional military that wants to do the right thing, wants to follow the law, wants to be the good guys in the world, dangling here for months. We don't know what this real legal justification is other than kind of a trust me, it's legal. I call these people terrorists so we can kill them kind of thing. That's not the way the law works, and our military shouldn't be sitting out there wondering whether the orders they're being given are lawful or not. You go out there, if they're lawful, prove it. Man up, prove it, put your cards on the table, show it, show people your evidence, let them pick it apart. And that's how you really support your troops, is by giving them a legal, lawful mission and standing behind it and putting yourself on the line if you have to.
Admiral, let me ask you an uncomfortable question. If you're in the military, what should you do if you now have questions from the video urging them not to follow illegal orders, and from the Washington Post reporting, making clear that a second strike, that if it happened the way the Post says it happened, the way Pete Hegseth comments the next morning are not inconsistent with it happening, the way the White House now seems to be throwing a member of the military under the bus is not inconsistent with it happening. What should you do?
Well, I think the Department of Defense Law of War Manual is pretty clear on this. They have a section about what to do in case you're given a clearly unlawful order. And the exact example that's given in that manual is an order to fire on shipwrecked people clinging for survival in the water. That is the example they give of what is a clearly unlawful order. So I think the Department of Defense has answered that themselves.